At Christmas dinner, no one looked at me once. Not when I arrived, not when I served the food I'd spent days preparing, not even when I sat down at the table. They were all too busy with their phones, their conversations, their perfect lives. But the moment I stood up and calmly walked to the fireplace, everything changed. I picked up the envelope sitting on the mantel, the one containing my revised will, and said 5 words that made them finally see me. I've made some changes today. The room went dead silent. My name is Margaret Chen, I'm 72 years old, and that moment of being completely invisible became the catalyst for the most important decision of my life. If you've ever felt like a ghost in your own family, or wondered when enough is finally enough, hit that like button right now and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if the people you raised treated you like you didn't exist? I read every single comment. Let's hear your stories. The day had started at 4 a.m. I woke up in my house in Riverside, the same house where I'd raised 3 children, the same kitchen where I'd made countless holiday meals over 40 years. This Christmas was supposed to be special. My daughter Victoria had suggested hosting at my place this year, which I'd taken as a good sign. Maybe they wanted to come back to their childhood home. Maybe they missed the traditions. I spent 3 days preparing. Roasted turkey with herb butter, glazed ham, homemade stuffing, cranberry sauce from scratch, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, fresh rolls, and 3 different pies, pumpkin, apple, and pecan. Everything from memory, the recipes I'd perfected over decades. The house was decorated exactly how it used to be when my husband Thomas was alive. Garland on the staircase, stockings hung by the fireplace, the old ceramic nativity set on the side table. I even put up the artificial tree in the corner, the same one we'd had since the kids were small, with ornaments they'd made in elementary school still hanging on the branches. Victoria arrived first at 2 p.m. with her husband Derek and their 2 teenagers, Emma and Connor. She walked in carrying shopping bags from expensive stores, barely glancing at the decorations I'd spent hours arranging. "Hey, Mom," she said distractedly, already on her phone. "Where should I put these gifts?" "Under the tree would be lovely," I said, wiping my hands on my apron. "Dinner will be ready at 5. She nodded without looking up, texting rapidly. Derek headed straight for the living room, turning on the football game. Emma and Connor followed him, both pulling out their phones the moment they sat on the couch. I stood in the doorway. "Can I get anyone something to drink?" "I made hot cider." "We're good," Derek said, eyes locked on the screen. The teenagers didn't even respond. My son James arrived 30 minutes later with his wife Patricia and their daughter Sophie. James was on a work call when he walked through the door, holding up a finger when I tried to greet him. He disappeared into the den, voice echoing about quarterly projections and client meetings. Patricia kissed the air near my cheek. "Smells good in here." "Sophie, say hi to Grandma." Sophie, 16 and glued to her phone, mumbled hi without making eye contact before joining her cousins in the living room. Patricia set down a store-bought pie still in its plastic container. I picked up a backup dessert. "You know, just in case." Just in case my pies weren't good enough, she meant. My youngest, Robert, showed up last with his new girlfriend, Melissa. They were both laughing about something on his phone as they entered. "Mom, this is Melissa," Robert said, finally looking at me for half a second. "Nice to meet you," Melissa said politely, then immediately turned back to Robert. "Show her that video from last night." They migrated to the living room with everyone else. I stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by dishes and serving platters, listening to the sound of laughter and conversation happening in the next room. Without me. I took a deep breath and started plating the appetizers I'd prepared: cheese and crackers, shrimp cocktail, stuffed mushrooms. I carried them out on a tray and set them on the coffee table. "Help yourselves to some appetizers while we wait for dinner." Victoria grabbed a cracker without looking away from her phone. Nobody else even acknowledged I'd spoken. I returned to the kitchen and checked the turkey. Perfect golden brown. I'd timed everything precisely so it would all be ready together. For the next hour, I finished the final preparations alone, listening to my family laugh and talk in the other room. Not once did anyone come to ask if I needed help. Not once did anyone check on me. At 5 p.m. sharp, I called everyone to the table. "Dinner's ready." It took 15 minutes for them to actually move from the living room to the dining room. They came reluctantly, still attached to their devices. The table looked beautiful. I'd used my good china, the set Thomas and I had received as a wedding gift. Crystal glasses, linen napkins, candles flickering in the center. Every dish was perfectly prepared and arranged. They sat down in a scattered, distracted way. Victoria at one end, James across from her, Robert and Melissa on one side, Derek and Patricia on the other. The teenagers squeezed in wherever. I took the seat at the head of the table, the spot that used to be Thomas's. "Everything looks nice, Mom," Victoria said automatically, reaching for the wine Derek was pouring. That was it. One generic compliment. Then they started serving themselves, plates being passed, food being loaded on without ceremony or appreciation. I'd made enough to feed 20 people, and they took it like it was a buffet at a hotel. Conversation started immediately, but none of it included me. Victoria talked about her recent promotion at the marketing firm, going on about her new corner office and executive assistant. James jumped in with his own work news, a major deal he'd closed that would mean a significant bonus. Patricia discussed their country club's New Year's Eve gala. Robert and Melissa were whispering and giggling about something private. The teenagers were all on their phones under the table. I sat at the head of the table, eating the food I'd spent days preparing, completely invisible. I tried several times to join the conversation. "Victoria, that promotion sounds wonderful. What will your new responsibilities be?" She answered briefly, more client management, bigger accounts, then immediately turned to James to ask about his deal. I tried again. "James, congratulations on the bonus. Are you and Patricia planning anything special?" "Maybe upgrade the boat," he said, not even glancing my way before launching into a story Derek could relate to about marina fees. I looked at Robert. "How's the new apartment working out?" "Fine," he said, then turned to Melissa. "You want more wine?" It was like I wasn't there. Like the words I spoke dissolved in the air before reaching anyone's ears. 20 minutes into the meal, Victoria's phone rang. She answered it right at the table. "Hey! Merry Christmas!" "Oh my God, yes, I got it. I love it." She stood up and walked into the living room, having a loud conversation with someone who wasn't even there while her dinner got cold. Emma and Connor were openly texting now, phones literally on the table next to their plates. Patricia was scrolling through social media between bites. James was reading work emails. Robert and Melissa were watching videos together, one earbud each. I set down my fork and looked around the table. My family, the people I'd given everything to for decades, couldn't even be present for one meal. They'd driven to my house, walked through my door, sat at my table, and eaten my food without truly seeing me once. The hurt settled deep in my chest, heavy and undeniable. Then something shifted inside me. Not anger exactly, but clarity. Sharp and absolute. I'd been waiting for them to value me, to appreciate me, to acknowledge me. But I couldn't make them do any of those things. What I could do was stop accepting this treatment. I stood up calmly, placing my napkin beside my plate. The movement was quiet, but something about it must have registered because Victoria, back from her phone call, looked up. "You okay, Mom?" "I'm fine," I said evenly. I walked to the fireplace where I'd placed an envelope that morning. A white envelope with legal papers inside. I picked it up and turned to face the dining room. They were all watching me now, probably confused about why I'd left the table. For the first time all evening, I had their complete attention. "I've made some changes today," I said clearly, holding up the envelope. "This is my revised will. I met with my attorney yesterday, and everything is finalized." The room went completely still. Forks stopped midair. Phones were lowered. Every single person was looking at me now. Really looking. "What are you talking about?" Victoria asked, standing up. "I'm talking about my estate," I continued calmly. "The house we're sitting in, worth approximately $2 million. The investment accounts and savings Thomas and I built over 40 years, worth about $3 million more. The life insurance policies, the pension benefits, everything. It totals around $5.5 million. James was on his feet now too. "Mom, why are you bringing this up at Christmas dinner?" "Because this is the first time any of you have actually looked at me all day," I said simply. "I've been invisible since you arrived. Not one of you has had a real conversation with me. Not one of you has asked how I'm doing, what's happening in my life, whether I need anything. You came here for a free meal and nothing more." "That's not fair," Patricia started. "Isn't it?" I interrupted. "I spent 3 days preparing this food. I decorated this entire house. I set this beautiful table. And from the moment you walked in, you've treated me like I'm furniture. Like I'm the help. You didn't even look at me when I served appetizers." Robert found his voice. "We're just comfortable, Mom. We don't need to make a big deal out of everything." "Comfortable," I repeated. "You're comfortable ignoring me. Comfortable being on your phones during a family dinner. Comfortable taking everything I do for granted." I held up the envelope again. "So yes, I made changes. Big ones. If you're watching this and feeling something right now, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. Have you ever reached a breaking point with your family? What did you do? I want to know your story." Victoria's voice was tight. "What kind of changes?" "I've left everything to charity," I said simply. "Every single dollar." The explosion was immediate. "You can't be serious," James shouted. "That's our inheritance." "Your inheritance?" I asked quietly. "Thomas and I worked our entire lives for what we have. We saved, we sacrificed, we planned. That money is ours, not yours. You're not entitled to a single penny just because you were born." Derek stepped forward. "Margaret, you're clearly upset. Let's not make rash decisions when emotions are high." I'm not upset, I corrected him. And this isn't rash. I've been thinking about it for months. Today just confirmed what I already knew. Patricia tried a different approach. Mom, we love you. We're sorry if you felt ignored. It's been a stressful year for all of us. Work, kids, everything. We didn't mean to make you feel unimportant. You didn't mean to, I said. But you did. Repeatedly. This isn't about one bad Christmas. This is about years of being pushed to the margins of your lives. Of phone calls that last 3 minutes. Of visits where you can't wait to leave. Of being included only when it's convenient for you. Victoria's face was red. So you're punishing us? By giving away our inheritance to strangers? I'm not punishing anyone. I'm making a choice about my own assets. And the organizations I've chosen aren't strangers. They're charities that align with values I care about. Medical research, education, support for vulnerable people. Causes that matter. We matter. Robert said angrily. We're your children. Then act like it, I said firmly. Be my children. Not my occasional visitors. Not people who show up twice a year out of obligation. Be present in my life because you want to be, not because you're waiting for me to die so you can cash in. The room erupted into chaos. Everyone talking at once, voices overlapping, accusations flying. James said I was being manipulated. Victoria claimed I wasn't thinking clearly. Patricia suggested I needed to see a doctor. Robert accused me of favoritism, asking if I'd given everything to one of them instead. The teenagers looked uncomfortable, Emma actually putting down her phone. Melissa tried to back toward the door. I raised my voice above the noise. Enough. They went quiet. I am 72 years old. I am of completely sound mind. I met with Gerald Hoffman, who has been our family attorney for 25 years. Every legal requirement has been met. The will is valid, witnessed, and filed. This isn't open for debate. We'll contest it, James said immediately. We'll fight this in court. You're clearly not capable of making sound decisions. I looked at him sadly. There it is. The real reason you're upset. Not because you'll miss me when I'm gone. Not because you value our relationship. Because you're losing money you never earned. Victoria was crying now. Real tears streaming down her face. How can you do this to us? After everything we've been through? After losing Dad? I lost Thomas too, I said quietly. I lost my husband of 43 years. And in the 8 years since he died, you've gradually stopped being my family. You've become strangers who share my last name. Derek tried again. Let's all take a breath. We can discuss this rationally after the holidays. I'm sure we can reach some kind of compromise. There's no compromise, I said. The decision is made. If you want to be in my life going forward, you're welcome. But it will be because you choose to be, not because you're protecting a financial interest. I set the envelope back on the mantel and turned to face them one more time. I'm going to my room now. You're welcome to finish eating. Take leftovers if you want. But I'm done being invisible in my own home. If you decide you want an actual relationship with me, not my money, my phone number hasn't changed. I walked out of the dining room, through the kitchen, and up the stairs to my bedroom. Behind me, I heard their voices rising again, arguing amongst themselves now. I closed my door, sat on the edge of my bed, and exhaled. My hands were shaking. My heart pounded. But I felt lighter than I had in years. I'd finally said what needed to be said. Finally stood up for myself after years of accepting less than I deserved. The house gradually went quiet downstairs. I heard cars starting, doors closing, voices fading. One by one, they left. Not a single person came upstairs to talk to me. Not one apology. Not one attempt to salvage the relationship beyond the money. That told me everything I needed to know. I changed into comfortable clothes and sat in the reading chair by my window, looking out at the darkened street. Christmas lights twinkled on neighboring houses. Families visible through windows, gathered around trees and tables. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. For the first time in a long time, I'd chosen myself. My phone buzzed repeatedly over the next hour. Angry texts from James, "You've lost your mind. We're getting you evaluated." Manipulative messages from Victoria, "Please call me. We need to talk about this. I'm so hurt." Robert's texts were shorter, unbelievable. "You're choosing strangers over your own kids." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called my attorney Gerald Hoffman's emergency line. He answered on the third ring. "Margaret, is everything all right?" I told them, I said. About the will changes. It went exactly as expected. "I'm sorry it was difficult," he said gently. "Do you need anything legally? Are they threatening to contest?" James mentioned it. "But everything is solid, correct?" "Completely solid. You've been evaluated by 2 independent physicians as part of the process, both confirming full mental capacity. The will is ironclad. Let them try to contest. They'll waste money on lawyers and lose." "Good," I said. "Thank you, Gerald. Take care of yourself, Margaret. You did the right thing." I spent the rest of Christmas evening alone. I made myself a cup of tea, turned on some classical music, and actually relaxed for the first time in weeks. No pressure to perform, no walking on eggshells, no trying to earn attention from people who'd decided I wasn't worth it. The next few days were quiet. I screened my calls, ignoring the ones from my children. On December 28th, Victoria showed up at my door. I saw her through the window, standing on the porch, looking exhausted. I considered not answering, but curiosity won. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Mom, please. Can we talk?" "What is there to talk about?" I asked. "I'm sorry," she said, and to her credit, she looked like she meant it. "You were right. About all of it. We took you for granted. I took you for granted. Apologies are words, Victoria. What matters is action." "I know. That's why I'm here. I want to do better. I want to actually be your daughter, not just someone who shows up on holidays." I studied her face, looking for manipulation, for the angle. I saw only exhaustion and regret. "This isn't about the money?" I asked directly. "I mean, yes, the money hurts," she admitted. "I'd be lying if I said it didn't. But losing you hurts more. Realizing I've been a terrible daughter hurts more. Watching you walk upstairs on Christmas and knowing I drove you there hurts more." I opened the door wider. Come in. We sat in the living room, the same room where just days before she'd ignored me while staring at her phone. This time, her phone stayed in her purse. When did I become someone you just tolerated? I asked. She looked down at her hands. It wasn't one moment. It was gradual. After Dad died, you were grieving, and we were trying to help. But then you started recovering, rebuilding your life, and somewhere along the way, I stopped checking in as much. I got caught up in work, in the kids, in my own problems. Every time I thought about calling, something else came up. And then it had been a week, then 2 weeks, then a month. It became a pattern. You visited, I pointed out. Out of obligation. Not because I really wanted to connect. I'm ashamed to admit that, but it's true. And Christmas dinner, God, Mom, I didn't even realize what we were doing until you stood up. I saw us through your eyes for the first time. We were horrible. Yes, you were, I agreed. There was no point in softening it. She nodded, wiping tears from her cheeks. Can we fix this? Is it too late? I don't know, I said honestly. That depends on whether you're willing to put in actual work. Regular phone calls. Real visits where you're present, not distracted. Including me in your life because you want to, not because you feel obligated. I want to, she said firmly. I really do. And I'll prove it. Starting now. Over the next weeks, she did try. She called twice a week, conversations lasting more than 5 minutes. She invited me to lunch, just the two of us. She brought Emma over one afternoon, and the 3 of us baked cookies together, actually talking and laughing. James took longer. He sent a formal email in early January, apologizing for his reaction but maintaining that my decision was financially irresponsible. I didn't respond. Robert showed up in late January, more subdued than I'd ever seen him. I've been thinking about what you said, he told me. About being comfortable ignoring you. That's what I've done my whole life, isn't it? Just coasted along, expecting you to always be there, always supporting me, never asking for anything in return. Yes, I said simply. I'm sorry, Mom. Really sorry. Not because of the money, though I'd be lying if I said that didn't sting. But because I've been a selfish son and I didn't even realize it until you forced me to see it. What are you going to do about it? I asked. Show up, he said. Actually show up. And he did. Slowly, gradually, my relationship with my children began to change. Not perfect, not immediately, but genuine. 6 months later, we had another family dinner. This time at Victoria's house. When I arrived, Derek met me at the door with a hug. Emma and Connor put down their phones and actually talked to me. Victoria gave me a real welcome, introducing me to a new neighbor with pride in her voice. This is my mom, Margaret. She's amazing. During dinner, they asked about my volunteer work at the community center. About my book club. About my trip to visit Thomas's sister in Florida. They listened when I answered. They made eye contact. They were present. After dessert, Victoria pulled out an envelope. Mom, we all discussed this together. We want you to have this. I opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter, signed by all 3 of my children. It read, Mom, we know we don't deserve it, but we're asking you to reconsider the will. Not because we want the money, but because we want you to know that we're back in your life for the right reasons now. Whatever you decide, we'll respect it. But we wanted you to know that we understand what we did wrong, and we're committed to doing better. We love you. Not your assets. You. I folded the letter carefully and looked at each of them. James was there with Patricia and Sophie. Robert had come alone, having broken up with Melissa. All of them were watching me with something I hadn't seen in years, genuine care. I'll think about it, I said. And I did. Over the following months, I watched their actions. Victoria called every Sunday, without fail. James visited monthly, staying for hours, helping with house projects. Robert brought groceries, fixed things that broke, just spent time with me. They weren't perfect. Old habits sometimes resurfaced, moments of distraction or self-focus. But they caught themselves now. They corrected course. They tried. A year after that Christmas dinner where no one looked at me once, I called another family meeting. This time, everyone gathered at my house again, but the energy was completely different. They arrived early to help set up. They asked what they could do. They stayed off their phones. After dinner, I stood at the head of the table, the same spot where I'd served food while being ignored. I have an announcement, I said. They all looked at me, really looked, with attention and respect. I've revised my will again. Victoria's face showed concern but not panic. Whatever you've decided, Mom, we support it. I'm splitting my estate differently now, I continued. 60% will go to the charities I selected. They do important work, and I stand by that decision. The remaining 40% will be divided equally among the three of you, with specific trusts set up for the grandchildren's education. James spoke first. Thank you, Mom. But more than that, thank you for not giving up on us when you had every reason to. Thank you for showing me I was wrong to write you off completely, I replied. You've proven over this past year that you're capable of being the children I raised. The people your father would be proud of. We spent the rest of the evening together, really together. Talking, laughing, sharing stories about Thomas, about the old days, about current lives and future plans. When they left, each one hugged me tight. Real hugs, not perfunctory ones. As I cleaned up, Victoria stayed to help. You changed our lives that Christmas, she said, drying dishes. I thought you were being cruel at the time. Now I understand you were being kind. You woke us up. I changed my own life too, I admitted. I learned to value myself enough to demand respect. That was the real gift. She smiled. Dad would have been proud of you. He would have been proud of all of us, I said. For finding our way back to each other. Before we end this story, I need 3 things from you. First, hit that like button if this touched you in any way. Second, share this with your family, your friends, anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to stand up for yourself. Third, comment below and tell me your story. Have you ever had to make a hard choice to get your family's attention? Did setting boundaries help or hurt? What would you do in Margaret's situation? I read every single comment because your stories matter. Your experiences matter. Remember, being invisible in your own family isn't something you have to accept. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be unseen anymore. Demand the respect you deserve. Set the boundaries you need. And know that your worth isn't determined by whether others choose to see it. You matter, with or without their acknowledgement. My name is Margaret Chen, I'm 72 years old, and I am no longer invisible. And neither should you be.